Hey guys, James here again. This is going to be What If Daniel was the 11th Genius. I had a very similar What If not long ago, so yeah. I did delete the fact I didn't like it, but yeah, my thumbnail making skills have improved, and I like this one. Also, spoilers for my next What If. Here you go. So yeah. So Daniel basically be the 11th Genius. And one thing, I'm going to actually be spoiling for some of the geniuses. If you guys don't know who the geniuses are, I'm going to tell you who they are right now. So basically, in not in order, but from the ones that we know of, we have Crystal Choi. She has two bodies like Daniel, but she's also the daughter of Chairman Choi. We have Gunn. He was trained by Tom Lee, but also had a major role in creating the four major crews. He's also a Crystal chauffeur and bodyguard. We have DG or James Lee. If you guys aren't far into lookism, or at least you're not as far as me or as other people, you guys may have seen DG's like pink hair. So yeah. So DG has pink hair and everything. So yeah. Okay, he's also kind of the head of the PTJ agency, but his name was originally James Lee and changed it, and he's basically known as the legend of the Fist generation. Fist generation. Like he's the strongest one of that generation. Also, if you're far enough in but don't know that DG is James Lee's the name that Daniel's using, or Chairman Choi gave his second body. That's the identity that Daniel's second body's legal name is. Just no one seems to care about that anymore. Then we have Goo. Goo is also Gun's, I guess, frenemy and partner. Well, like fighting partner. I don't know. I don't think Gun would date Goo at all. He doesn't like him that much. Koji's also pretty young, which he does probably signify that Koji may have been one of the most recent genius ever. Because Koji is like his first year of high school, and that's after the time skip. So yeah. Paul. Alright, so Koji's probably the most recent genius and the youngest too. He's really young. Pretty sure she said it said he's 13, but just goes on early because of how smart he is. But Koji's a genius. Like he's insanely smart. We have Tom Lee, who's the oldest genius, probably. Or yeah, actually, Chairman Choi's he made all these geniuses. I assume Chairman Choi's probably the strongest person in the series because it says that these are his geniuses, and Tom Lee's one of them. And Tom Lee's probably the strongest character we've seen so far, besides Gun and Goo. Yeah, Tom Lee's also Johan's boss, or Johan's boss. If you guys didn't know that, yeah, Johan is, yeah. So yeah, Tom Lee's Johan's boss, and now Johan, if you guys didn't know, is now part of the workers because Tom Lee joined them. So unless Johan decides to quit his job, unless Johan quits his job with Tom Lee, he's part of the workers. And Daniel ended up just being captured by them because it was revealed he was a traitor. We have Eugene, the head of the workers. He's also a genius. And then what's the other guy's name? This is one that is actually not in Webtoon yet. It's not revealed that. This is like how many chapters is this? Right, honestly, give Lucasm like a month on Webtoon, and you'll be introduced to this character. At the best, 3 weeks. This one you'll meet the newest genius. What's his name? Jin Young Park. He's actually a medical genius, and fun fact, he worked for Jake Kim's dad. So he's actually the right hand man of Gabrielle Kim. He's a medical genius. So we know there's different kinds of geniuses, such as Eugene. Eugene's not a fighter, or at least that we know, but he's a genius, just a sheer intelligent man. But also he has resources, and it's stated that he knows Tom Lee's weakness. We have Koji, who's sheerly just a hacker and just a genius himself. DG has other talents besides like singing and everything. Plus, he's also a model. So I guess James Lee's talent is just looking good and singing and fighting. Then we have Crystal, who actually seems to be a businesswoman and a pretty decent fighter. She can't beat any like the main fighters that we know of in the series, but she seems to be pretty decent to take down or push back Common Thug. So then we have Jin Young Park, who's actually just a medical genius. So they can like just tell you different kind of geniuses that Chairman Choi can raise. So yeah. So basically, at this one, second body Daniel basically just be found at the park as a young kid, and he actually happens to be playing with a young Koji, and a young Crystal. Then Koji's like 13. So if Daniel's 5, Koji wouldn't be born yet, so it's just him and Crystal. He's at the park. We'll actually see some boys try to bully Crystal, and actually Gun isn't around. Gun wouldn't be in Korea, I believe, because Gun's like 5 years Daniel's 18, post time skip. Gun is 22, so 18, 20, 21, 22. Gun would be like 9, so he'd be in Japan. We don't know about any other guards besides like not guards. We don't know about any other geniuses that what they're doing besides like Tom Lee and Jin Young. Like Tom Lee, Jin Young are like the only two people that we could possibly think of that are like only people who could guard Crystal, and I'd probably say Tom Lee's the best bet. These boys are bullying Crystal. Tom Lee isn't around, and Chairman Choi happens to be setting up a business so far right now. Daniel will be in defending Crystal with all he has, and Tom Lee would see Daniel's body as a fast to react to some of these bullies. One of them used to be a boxer. Not used to be a boxer, but one of them actually knows a few boxing techniques. Actually, this isn't Zeka or thinking of that. He's just a random kid who knows boxing. And he's really bad at it. Like, he only, at the best, only do a straight punch. So Daniel was actually able to dodge straight punch and actually do it on him, knocking the kid out in one go. Tom Lee realized that Daniel copied the kid's stance and everything perfectly. Due to them both being young, well, they're both pretty small, so he's actually pretty easily hit and copying and hit him. With this, Tom actually tells Charles that he saw this kid named Daniel, some fat kid, perfectly copy this technique with every ounce of it being perfect and similar to someone who's taking classes. And Daniel obviously hasn't worked out a day in his life. Like, he thinks it'd be impressive if Daniel took even 20 steps a day. This, Charles will actually keep an eye on Daniel, because he actually has Crystal go to the same park where Daniel would go there as well, because his daycare is nearby. But these same boys came back to bully Crystal, actually not to bully Crystal, but to fight Daniel. But Charles actually watched Daniel actually copy more techniques. Not copy more techniques, but just keep like fighting the same kid who's main one trying to attack Daniel. So Daniel's actually just pretty impressive to Charles Choi. But around a week later, Daniel would come home and see his mother, well, not there. Well, actually, it turns out his mother had a job opportunity overseas. And she did tell Daniel about it, or she thought she did. She called his school, only for Charles to be there and actually hang up the call. Told Daniel that he'll be living with his cousins, only for Charles to buy out his family and actually make them hand him over to them. And Daniel's mother actually did what she did, try to keep in contact with the family until she hears that they gave him up for adoption. Immediately tried to find the adopted family, and it did work as she found out about Charles. Charles legally adopted Daniel. And, well, the name Charles Choi, actually. Daniel was adopted under Jin Young Jin Young Park, because no one knows who he is, unless you're a strong-ass fighter. And Daniel's name his last name is already Park, so it didn't matter. So Daniel is honestly just, like, kind of just unrecognizable in name. They can't tell the difference. So she got in touch with Jin Young, and Jin Young would let Daniel talk to his mom at least three times a month. Which is actually pretty good. But at this time, Tom Lee would actually kind of starve Daniel until he lost enough weight to be average. But then we move on to when Daniel's roughly about 14 years old. At this point, he has James Lee as his older brother. He has Gun. He has Crystal. He has Koji. He has Tom. He has Eugene. He has Gu. And he has Jin Young. And the other geniuses that we don't know about yet. Well, unless these geniuses, because they're called the 10 geniuses and we only know 7 of them, they can probably just assume that the other 3 are probably just around and Daniel knows them. But due to Jin Young actually being his legal father, Jin Young has Daniel live with him. And Jin Young's a grown man, so is Tom Lee, but Tom Lee seems to mooch off Charles a lot. While Jin Young worked at Grappyang Kim, and I assume Jin Young could have his own place to live. But Jin Young basically teaches Daniel how to be a doctor and everything, so on and so forth. So Daniel's already an elite level doctor. Thanks to Tom Lee training him for the past 9 years. Because I trained Tom Lee for about 5. Daniel's been training with Gun, Gu, Tom, Charles, DG for around the last 6, plus Tom training him for 9. Jin Young training him since he got Daniel. Daniel's a really strong fighter, but he's also still a kid and still a lot like Uncle Daniel. But yeah, he's actually really small, which they can't do anything about besides give him surgery, and he's not old enough for that yet. And Jin Young does actually have a bond, like a father-like bond to Daniel, and Charles doesn't know how that is, so he does refuse to let Daniel get that kind of surgery at such a young age, because it may just actually destroy his body as he gets bigger. If he does get any bigger. He's like 5'3" at the max. But, yeah, so him being relatively small, they don't always train him to a full ability, and they kind of actually look down upon him. But so far, from Gun, he's learned Kyokushin Karate Capoeira. Then from DG taught him the basics of street fighting. Plus, from what Daniel kind of rolled around with James Lee a lot during the Generation of Fists. Gun and Gu went with him as well because they looked after their little brother. Basically, that's how Gun saw Daniel as a little brother. So with Daniel's Kyokushin karate, perfectly being on the guns level, same with capoeira, then street fighting being on the same same level as James Lee. Well, these three, Gun, James, they all progress a lot faster than Daniel because they're experienced fighters, while Daniel is just a big copycat. The Generation Fist is his true experience with fighting. Now, this is actually kind of weird for him because we actually heard one of the kings of the king of Ansan, someone who may have been probably one of the strongest ever in this part of the series. There were guys that made Daniel not seem basically very common in the Generation of Fists. Well, Daniel just experienced guys who were a lot like him every single day. Yeah, he may be on par with Gun and Goo's martial arts skills, but their sheer experience is far greater than he could ever hope to be. Or ever hope to have. Because Gun was born and raised in the Yakuza. He's killed dozens of men by the time he's 15 years old. At this point, he's almost 20. James Lee is just a fucking legend. Goo is Goo, and we know how Goo is. He's Gun's rival, so he'll probably do the same stuff as Gun. Yes, Tom Lee, who's probably just someone who can kill thousands. Then same with Jin Young, and then Eugene, just a genius beyond belief. Well, they don't really train Daniel as much as they could, and also these guys are far more accomplished and experienced than Daniel could ever hope to have. Eugene is experienced in the world of business and just sheer intelligence. Tom Lee is like fucking 48, and is just he's part of he's been involved in every generation of fighters, including of the caught up version because he trained Eli. He also possibly trained James Lee. Who knows? Like, he's been involved in every single generation in a vital way. So yeah. So this just shows how much experience people around him have. And despite his ability, they're more experienced, so they by default are stronger than him. But one thing that's pretty important to him is actually Ansan, because that's where you actually get the biggest experience of fighting. The best experience in fighting. Pause. Actually, with how old DG is, and him saying he's probably a few months older than Gun and Goo, I assume Daniel probably joined in the generation of Fists towards the end of it, and Ansan like his only target, the fact that someone there was challenging James. So he beat up everyone in Ansan besides Tae-Soo. The reason he couldn't beat Tae-Soo or come close to him because he beat Hudson, he beat Channing, he beat Jackie. He beat the whole Ansan school district, and he still lost because he fought them all in one day and won. But yeah, so James did know that Daniel probably fought Tae-Soo at full power. He probably still would have lost, but Tae-Soo would have left that fight probably never fighting again. So yeah, one thing that Daniel copied from Tae-Soo is probably just his whole fist thing. So Daniel doesn't train like that. But eventually, by the time that Daniel was 17, he joined in when he's like 13, and when he's 15, he actually would abandon Chairman Choi's whole like teachings of uniting the four major crews because he didn't feel like doing that at all. He didn't care about it. So he abandoned the four major crews, creation, and well, he dropped off the face of the earth. But with a few connections with the help of James, or now known, but with up and coming star DG's help as well, he legally changed his father's his registration to actually have his mother as his legal guardian, but he was indicted. Now, that does kind of leave a few questions, but money changes everything in Manhwa, so screw it, they don't care. Daniel kind of just lives on his own in a small apartment, and it happens to be, it's an eyesight of DG's apartment, so if Daniel's apartment were to be broken into or destroyed, and DG's home, he can actually see this from his house. So DG would know if Daniel's in danger. And actually, no one actually cares about him, so, yeah. But one day he had heard about some group named Hostal being beaten up by some guy wearing glasses and with a scar on his face. Only guy he knows that does that would probably be Goo or Gun. Plus he heard about a crew being made called Big Deal. And some guy in glasses and, guy in glasses and someone with a sword beat up their leader, and then, Big Deal was made. Plus, some random nerd built a whole crew called Workers, and, that crew started up. So there's already 3 crews he knows about that are being established. So Daniel actually go investigate Hostal, and when he arrives the next day after they got beat up by Gun. We're questioning who he is, but he says, "Oh, the guy who beat you up yesterday, I might know him." Now, immediately they attack Daniel, full speed. Only for Daniel's capoeira to nail Warren right in the solar plexus, and Eli can't keep up with Daniel's beastly martial arts. He says, "Oh, you must have been trained by Mr. Carpenter too." Eli would jump back, questioning how Daniel knows that. And then he says, "Oh, he's like my dad. His name's Tom, I think." He never let me say his name like that though. Suddenly, Eli right in the face with a kick, and Eli gets him flying to a wall into Max and Derek. Well, they can break Daniel's just raw power, just muscly body. His body may have been thin, but all that thinness is just pure muscle. So no, it hit him. He didn't really feel it. And just kind of like the whole kick that Madara does when he jumps in the air and spins around, nailing 2 kicks. He did both of that and just nailed them both right in the face, knocking them unconscious. So yeah. So yeah, he beat all of Hostal by himself. Mac and Derek couldn't really make him feel pain. We told Eli that he's willing to make Eli the strongest he could ever be, strong enough to take down Mr. Carpenter, as he did air quotes. Warren, he knows what martial arts Warren is using, but it's a horrible version of it. So we'll make sure that Warren gets the best of the martial art he can. Then Max and Derek, they're already a really strong duo. They don't really need any help, but they could use a bit of technique instead of just basic street fighting. Fighting's pretty impressive if you know how to do it right. So if they don't want to learn martial arts, they need to street fight a lot. Max and Derek, they don't really have interest in martial arts, so they'll take the street fighting route. Eli actually said, how does he think, can he really trust Daniel? Nodded saying, yeah, he abandoned the guy that Gun and Goo, who he used to work with a long time ago. But he has other crews to visit. See, he walked away after he told him about the major crews are being formed, possibly a 4th one soon. Because he actually does notice that the region are being taken over. Workers took over this region, Hostal has this region, Big Duo has this region. All that's left is Gang Buck, and he doesn't know who's going to take that region yet. But he has his eye on a certain someone. Basically, that's who they fought, and they talk about Jerry Kwan and Johan, or Johan. How am I going to say it? I'm going to be saying both. But they talk about Johan's ability of just copying things. Smirking before saying, it's definitely him. He's going to rule Gang Buck, or Gang Buck. Then walked away and told him he'll come back soon. Now we fast forward around a month. Daniel came back with 3 guys by his side, and one big guy behind him. The big guy happened to have a beard, long shaggy hair, and didn't really wear a shirt, but wore a jacket over it. He's growing a beard. It wasn't too big of a beard, but he was trying to grow it. And then the guys next to him, one of them had really badly dyed blonde hair, and he walked with a bit of confidence, but not too much swagger. Guys next to him, one of them started getting tattoos. One of them was a pretty short guy. He's even pretty go-lucky. He said these 3, and that 4th guy behind him, those will be their teachers. Now, Channing, Jackie, Hudson, and Tae-Soo question Daniel on who these guys are. And if you guys were wondering why these guys actually willingly went with them, he did tell them that James Lee abandoned the whole idea of fighting. He didn't abandon it completely, but he's not really interested in too much. He's more of a pacifist. He'll fight if he feels like he needs to, but only to defend others, or if he thinks his life may be, not life, but if he thinks his body may be in somewhat of a slight bit of danger. Tae-Soo can agree with that, but first he wanted to fight Daniel. He agreed to Tae-Soo go for the punch. We fought Daniel when Daniel was 13 or 12, and Daniel had beaten his whole school district pretty easily. So Daniel caught Tae-Soo's punch, before she throwing Tae-Soo through a brick wall and then beat Tae-Soo into the dirt like it was nothing. So as he beat Tae-Soo when he's 15, then beat Hudson and everyone else, they go with him now. He says that this is his crew. And eventually, by the time that they're strong enough, he'll make the move to destroy all of the 4 major crews, and then something else entirely. But you telling them one thing, that it'll align with their goals. Or to prove that they're strongest, it'll align with their goals. So Tae-Soo would train Eli, Hudson would end up training Warren, but they actually had to do Jeet Kune Do Studio just for actually a bit of discipline. Hudson doesn't really have too much of that. Well, Hudson does, but not a lot of it. Then Jackie would end up training with Max and Derek, and then Channing would actually just end up training Sally and Heather and Ollie actually, because Ollie hasn't abandoned them yet. You guys are wondering how Eli would benefit from Tae-Soo. Eli doesn't acknowledge his body isn't really meant for just one thing. He fights like an animal. Tae-Soo actually have Eli train his whole body to its peak extent every single day. Make sure that Eli will train to the point where its muscles won't even be able to move the next day, but Eli will force him to move. So Eli had to understand that his body, he'll likely be training for at least 18 hours a day without rest. So yeah, they know the same thing for everyone else. But Max and Derek, at this point, compared to Anton, are actually still pretty powerful. Just the only thing that's stopping them is Tae-Soo and Hudson. So, Takes and Hudson are like the ones stopping that are making the gap for Anton and Hostal. I put Anton ahead. Yeah, so move on to Daniel investigating Big Deal. So you hear about Senior Han telling himself to the workers, and didn't happen to be heading over there after he met with Big Deal. We talks about Big Deal and how he just met with Hostal, and how Hostal is actually, becoming strong. He's willing to enter a secret alliance with Big Deal because he actually plans on taking down who Gun and Goo work for, then taking them down before that, though. So Jake actually does fight Daniel just to test out how strong Daniel is, but Daniel proves to be actually able to defeat Jake. He also beats Samuel, then beats Jerry, then beats Jason and Brad. He beats them all. Those of them with how Hostal's training, they'll never get, those of them with how hard Hostal's training currently, Big Deal will never match their power with this if they keep this amount of strength. He tells them about how Gun and Goo, how Gun was raised in the Yakuza, and Gun was also in juvie, and how Gun trained. Alright, so he beat basically everyone important in Big Deal, including Oldface and Oldface and Jake and Samuel. They actually did say he did find a reason why Samuel found an interest in why Gun found an interest in them, and Goo too. But specifically, he points out Oldface, and Samuel, saying those two wouldn't ever be worthy of Gun's attention. Samuel stood up saying, what? He's interested in Jake, and I'm on Jake's level. If he's interested in Jake, he's interested in me. They ended up laughing, saying, no. Yes, you have looks and you have strength. But Gun also has interest in finesse, technique, and sanity. You lack all of that. For a year, he actually nailed Samuel right in his teeth, knocking a few of them out. He was Oldface saying, and you don't have any of that, and you also don't have looks. And he kicks Oldface in the face so hard that Oldface's jaw is shattered. And tells Jake that he should abandon those two if he ever wants to get revenge on Gun, and Gun to pay him any mind. And Jake actually thinks about this for a bit, and he already said yes to the alliance. But kicking out Samuel and Oldface helped him think about that really hard. So yeah. So after a bit, he actually did think about this, and didn't notice how Samuel and Oldface are really against Big Deal's ideals. He decided to actually kick them both out. But Oldface did take a lot of the guys with him, and Samuel did as well. But when he asked Daniel if it's worth it, Daniel actually said he'll fight everyone Big Deal and determine if it was worth it. Then Daniel fights all the Big Deal in their street, and then says, definitely worth it. He feels that Big Deal's power has increased. Their power increased through morality, and actually just leaving only good fighters. Because Oldface was respected, so was Samuel, but Jake's power is also respected alongside his ideal for family. Family and respect. That's what makes Big Deal this strong. Everyone who left didn't embody that. They embodied violence and gang mentality. He did consider that, and she smiled, thanking Daniel for being honest with them, and doesn't appreciate his whole crew got beaten up. Still, he thanked Daniel for the honesty, and Daniel just said no problem. But something that Sinu Han is with the workers. And tells Jake how much money he was bought for, and where he'll likely be held. Or not where, but why he's likely being held. As a fighting dog. So Jake has to get involved with that kind of work. Daniel does investigate the workers on his downtime, and he says he refuses to actually go near them because he found out who's running them. Actually does. I want Jake to reveal it, and says sorry, but he does still appreciate his family, or at least the one who raised him. And one of his brothers happens to be the one not raising, but using the workers. But make sure he can take down the workers with time and not through sheer violence. But doubt he'll help Jake get Sinu back. Now around 2 months later, God Dog is formed, but Daniel then fights Johan, and then basically it's very tone you know how Daniel versus Johan was imagine 1080 FPS. The way that Daniel's fighting Johan at this point is more like 360 FPS. Then they have Ultra Instinct, but he had all the same martial arts. So yeah, not Jeet Kune Do that we saw, but yeah. Now with this, we fast forward to when Daniel is roughly around 16. Now Big Deal's gotten a lot stronger. So has God Dog. So has Workers. Same way I still was working with him a bit earlier. Even when he was investigated by Gun had no interest in Samuel already. Like Samuel says, "No, I fought some brat who said you had no interest in me because of this." And Gun is the only person who knew him that well, probably be Goo or Daniel. And it was probably Daniel, because Gu doesn't know who Samuel is. Or he does, but didn't care about him too much right now. So yeah. So Gunn did admit that Daniel was right, and Gunn would never have interest in Samuel. He's too violent, too crazy, and not really too respectable. Gunn isn't either, but Samuel's like scum. Complete scum. So yeah, so Samuel will fight Gunn and lose. But when we have like all the crew heads versus each other, like, well, Samuel just kind of interrupted, but to replace Ollie, it would actually be, well, Eli. Eli's been training with Hudson the whole time, but also has a daughter. But this time Heather's alive. So yeah, Eli was aware Heather was pregnant. So yeah, with Ollie actually getting a lot more respect as he's learning how to fight. He's learning how to fight from Channing. Well, he's actually getting decently impressive. Ollie mainly actually prefers to use knives and stuff, but Ollie actually does have like these wooden knives. But if you actually twist them hard enough and they come off, there's actual knives underneath. Ollie's hair is also pretty long still, but he's actually more like the right hand of Hostal. It was like Ollie looks the exact same, it's just involved sanity into it. So yeah. And then we have Max and Derek, also really powerful. And Warren, honestly, Warren is like the Sanji to Warren's like the Sanji to Eli. We see Ollie show really undying loyalty to Eli, but Ollie's grew in strength a lot faster than Warren did, shockingly. So yeah, but Warren's Jeet Kune Do is at a pretty basic level. Both his strength and speed and experience. Well, it's a lot higher level, but with like professional training from Jeet Kune Do, you can probably beat Warren if you're a high enough belt. Yeah. So when each crew head fights, the one that comes out on top is Hostal. Even when Samuel intervened, Jake took Samuel down pretty easily. Samuel didn't know that when he left a big deal, Jake got stronger just because Samuel was gone. So yeah, Samuel did actually want to stay and work and big deal due to the fact that he would have made Jake weaker. But Hostal came out on top, as Eli's body is like sculpted from head to toe and just sheer muscle. But he's leaving early in the middle of the fight, saying it's his daughter's dinner time and his girlfriend is at home. So yeah, all he says he'll stay and finish it, and that's how Hostal came out on top. Ollie's a bit more brutal than Eli is, and a bit more thorough too. So yeah, Johan was actually taken out by Ollie and immediately in the first half because Ollie's just watching. This is he'll finish up in Jake's place, but Ollie just slammed his head into the ground full of force, making blood splatter everywhere, saying that this is probably going to be enough to make him tired enough to be on par with them. Bagu arrived as he saw Ollie walking away with Samuel's neck tied up in a cord. Jake's head slammed it into a steel trash bin. And Johan with just his face covered in bruises and his face slammed in through a cement wall. So Ollie, if he did all this, and Ollie says, yeah, but he made sure to hurt himself enough to be on their level. They're still not strong though. They're still not strong to take on the big daddy of Hostal. And he says that if Eli stayed the whole time, he would have left without scratch. So yeah, after this, we move on. Twin Daniel is now 18 or 17. So around a year later. A year later, Daniel does get a second body still. His mother came back, and he lives with her. With Anton's business sense, and also them being under Daniel, without his mother knowing he runs two whole crews, 3 whole crews, counting Big Deal too. Well, counting Anton and Big Deal as crews, so those crews that work with Daniel, and do give him a bit of money actually. Well, Anton's the main one giving them money. Daniel runs all the clubs in Gang Buck, or most of them, are ran by Anton. Johan did actually try to take down Anton by himself. Only to fight Hudson and get an even match until Eli arrived and beat him into the dirt. And Eli fights like an animal, and Johan fought him before and copied it, only to find it not useful for him at all. You have to be experienced in street fighting and just fighting like an animal in general to get used to this kind of style of fighting. So Johan didn't copy it whatsoever. Hell, they even absorbed remaining members of the backdoor crew. Hostal did. And, Anson did, not Hostal. So Daniel makes a ton of money. And then some of that money goes to Big Deal because they don't make that much money. They're just really powerful. So yeah, he earns a ton of money, and that's buy his mom fancy stuff. But yes, what he does, he says, he works at a bouncer at a club. But eventually he does move out, and then eventually gets a second body, and still the original same Daniel, So yeah. So Daniel does end up basically saying body of funerals in Jai because, well, he's done a bit of digging on it, found out about Yun-Tae Lee, then actually asked around his siblings. Now they actually refuse to like acknowledge that Daniel's the one trying to just they know he runs Hostal's there, like they know he's the head of Ansan, Hostal, all that, but none of them refuse to acknowledge that. Like he's the king of Ansan, he's the son of Ansan, he is the head of Hostal, he's basically secret head of Big Deal, and he owns like 10 different businesses because he can, and he has the power to do so, and the strength, the knowledge, and the power to do so. I'm talking about like mental strength, but yeah. Plus, if his crew gets injured, he's a damn good doctor. It doesn't matter. They're patched up to their full ability. So Daniel beating his crew is really hard. It was a really hard thing to do. Hell, Eli is like surpassing everyone except for Tae-Soo, and Tae-Soo trained a lot harder. Tae-Soo abandoned like the whole one fist thing just to try and get his whole body as like Eli's doing. If he doesn't want to use one fist, like he just tenses up his muscles and his body's even more durable. But yeah, so Daniel's keeping an eye on Vasco or Yun-Tae Lee. He found out about him through Gu, actually. And then you actually did mention that Vasco did a workout routine, but Vasco knowing his, like, if from what you heard about Vasco, through, like, but through rumors, he's really extreme when it comes to just anything. So he made somebody taking it up a notch. Vasco may be really strong, but not strong enough to be in a crew head or anything. Not strong to be a crew head or anything. And I didn't understand that. Then he moved on to Zach Lee. Zach Lee's just really fast, really good boxer, but turned out he abandoned training. So, there's someone possible there. Then Vin Jin. They tried to dig up info on him. But then it found out there's a possible murder case for Vin. But due to him being a minor, nothing happened to it. So Vin's something special, but there's also Mary Kim there. But then, there's also, Jae Hong, son of Chairman Hong. And Chairman Hong is a bodyguard, basically Sophia Alexandra, or Alexandra Sophia. And we'll hear about her from DG, and DG does acknowledge that she knows Sistema and Kaliarnet, probably even more than that, and Jay probably knows them more than that as well. So Daniel's pretty interested in Jay, actually, more than anyone else. So, in order of, interest, it would go Jay, Vin, Vasco, and Zach. So all of his interests go to. Zach is least interesting because he's been in training to become a delinquent. Daniel almost did that. Still, he kept to his things. But yeah, so he goes into basically just school, and then in school, Julian is going to try to actually have Daniel start smoking and drinking. But he says no, he's not really a delinquent. He sits in a seat and is doing his work, and Dooley just tries to press Daniel and say, "Hey, you think better than us because we're delinquents?" I bet a pretty boy like you never fought a day in his life. So Smirk, as he was really too special in his generation. There's some guys who copied things very similar to him. So he did stand up, get in a boxing stance, and say, "Try me." To leave for a punch, only to get jabbed halfway across the classroom and get hit right into the wall. So he slumped over and he's unconscious. Dan says, "Oh, I didn't even do a basic punch. That was just a regular punch. Well, I didn't do a basic boxing punch. I didn't do a jab or anything. It was just a basic punch." Billy wobbled up, saying, "It's enough," before he fell over unconscious. Zach says, you beat up my lackeys. You're going to have to pay for that." He rushed at Daniel full speed, only just to have his punch stop with Daniel's foot. Dad then spun around, using the momentum off Zach's punch, saying, "Oh wow, you hit fast. Too bad I kick faster." Suddenly Zach kicked right in the face and knocked out. Daniel ended up landing, saying, I guess you are impressive. If I get you to stop smoking and drinking and get back to training, you may be more impressive than anyone I've ever seen. Maybe even Gun. With that, not Eli. Zach will wake up in some abandoned building. Actually, Daniel's old apartment, because he moved in with his mother once he ended up moving back to the country. Then he moved into a different house, which actually happened to be the old one near Jai High, that he lives in currently, in the Manhwa. He moved in there. He's also the one that Chairman Choi used to live in with him, and he's familiar with this place. But then this abandoned building, DG still owned it because DG paid his rent. And DG says he's not using it for anything, so Daniel can use it to train his guys that are going to rise into 4 major crews. There's 4 of them. Jay, Vin, Vasco, Zach. That's the 4 he needs. So 4 of them for each major crew. Well, actually, he only needs like 2 of them, because he only needs one of them to he only needs like just one of them to beat down Eugene and Mandyuk and that guy with the cap. So that's really just it. So yeah. So So yeah. So we can just do this like he tells him like who he is. He's Daniel Park. And he breaks down the generations of fighters. Now Vin's actually interested in this because here's like the titles that got him interested. Generation of Fists, Generation of Circles, Generation. Oh yeah, I forgot that makes up the Generation of Circles and Generation of Fists. Because like translations, Generation of Fists is for the 0 and first generation. So yeah, this may be a bit. It doesn't matter. If I said Generation of Fists, I meant Generation of Circles. Doesn't matter. All right. So here comes Generation of Circles. Vin got a bit uninterested until you hear about the strength. Says that guys like him, who copy everything, or at least be very, very, just they can grow progressively fast, very fast. It didn't matter. Daniel basically just kind of told them about the old generations and how they're the second generation. Well, technically the third if you give like the proper numbering, but giving the titles, they're the second generation. And he talks about the crew heads. Although Zach may know one. May know one of the crew heads. As he talks about Johan. And how Johan can him who can copy things, but Daniel masters whatever he copies, while Johan just copies the basics of what the person knows. What the person has been shown to do. So Zach all he has to do is become a better boxer than Johan, and Johan probably can't copy that skill. But Zach has to also know how to counter or dodge other martial arts. Like how I heard how simple it is to beat Johan, he was amazed, but didn't believe it. He wanted to fight Daniel himself, only using boxing, and agreed and beat Zach pretty easily. And so Daniel is certainly a boxer, he just copies what Zach's doing, he just copies the motions, and just knows how to counter it pretty easily. So he kind of just copied what... Oh, pause. So Daniel basically just, he's not really much of a boxer, but all he does is kind of just copy Zach's posture. Well, he actually could be, because he fought Johan before, but... That's honestly not an interesting fight at all. He just dodged all Johan's attacks and hit him in the face with one kick, and that took him out, so... Yeah. But he's copied all Johan's abilities, and Johan's copied Zach's, so it doesn't matter whatsoever. So he's kind of just using whatever Johan uses, and then Johan uses whatever Zach uses, so it's kind of just Zach fighting Zach. But if Zach was more powerful. Like, Zach's just fighting a stronger version of himself, and that's all it is. So yeah. But then, talks about what everyone else can learn. He says he can't really hire trainers for them because the ones he did hire are training someone else. They're training Hostal. Breaks down how Hostal the head goes to Jai. That's why Daniel's here, mainly because of the head. And he doesn't need to be interested in Eli because Eli is his works under him. Eli is like his third in command. Second in command would actually be Taesu. So Taesu's only too interested, but Hudson kind of relays everything, but Taesu just tells Hudson anything else. Alright, so usually explains that we can't hire them because it's Taesu, because everyone else. And we don't know how Eli's probably the strongest one in the school besides him. And now if they were trying to fight Eli, they'd probably all die. So yeah, eventually he does say that there are teachers you probably hire for them, but it take a lot of money. Plus they're all monsters in their own right. But he actually doesn't want to know if Vasco does any martial arts. Vasco says no. Jose begins teaching Vasco anything he can. Something actually began just Muay Thai he copied from random people in the generation of circles, actually. So yeah. So Vasco began learning MMA and Muay Thai. But then eventually couldn't really memorize everything that he copied, or kind of use everything he copied. So kind of sent Vasco to a gym, letting Vasco train here with Jace and the Burn Knuckle crew. Let's go find a Muay Thai coach and learn that. So yeah. Then with Jay, kind of just had Jay bring her Alexander Sophia occasionally, and then he trained with her occasionally just to copy her Krav Maga and Muay Thai. Krav Maga and Kali Arnis. So yeah. Pause. Alright, so Daniel would basically just have them all go to like certain gym or anything if they had a teacher who could, well, help them. But now we move on to probably just random arcs going on. Like Daniel became friends with Jiho. That was pretty easy. Vasco also didn't think that Daniel was bullying him. Also Daniel does have a job. He doesn't need a job. DG kind of funds everything he does. So yeah, and it's not too hard if you're the most famous K star in Korea. So yeah. Then Dooley does invite Daniel out to a bar. Same as Zach. Zach is invited too, but Zach says no. He's going to be working out. And Daniel says he's going to be doing the same thing. Me doesn't know Zach actually dropped out of like doing the activity. Just actually focus on boxing now. A lot earlier too. Plus, well, Vasco and everyone seems to be training a lot harder. Finn met another judo coach, or she reunited with the one he had originally. And even like made amends, as I know to say a clear mind, clear head does make you a lot stronger. So yeah. So yeah, we can probably just go on to just Daniel's birthday party goes to the exact same. Daniel's mother just give him money, but Vasco and Jason think he was extorting her. Daniel and Duke do perform at school. We go on to Daniel and Gun's reunion. Well, then in this one to be a reunion instead of just a random fight. Crystal does buy him. She didn't recognize Daniel for a bit, but Gun felt somewhat familiar with Daniel. And smirking as he looked at Gun, then went in for a capoeira kick as Gun would actually not barely be able to block it. He's sliding back a bit. I'd actually say that this Daniel is roughly about in terms of power, or actually this body, like I think he could probably fight all the ultra instinct Daniel that fought Goo. But he would like fight that Daniel. Like so he'd be enough to break Gun's arm, that's about it. Beat up Gun's body a bit and break his arm, that's all he can do. But Gun would still beat him. We have original body Daniel who could probably compare to like out of juvie Jake, around that level. Like the Jake that we see fight I don't know how to describe it. So probably just the I don't know. Just the Jake we see fight in the whole workers when they meet everyone else. But yeah. So Daniel sees Gun, and she calls over Eli as well. Eli walked over as she had dyed his hair blonde a bit earlier. Eli has that whole style before she took off his jacket. And actually yelled something. This confused Daniel, so actually saw Warren and Max and Derek walk over. Max and Derek don't look like grown men in this one. Yep, got my phone. They don't look like grown men, they look like normal teenagers, because they're the same age as Daniel and everyone else. So yeah, so Max and Derek will be the same age as Daniel and everyone else. Like we saw they used to go to school, so most of them kept going to school, and Eli's in school as well. Heather mainly takes like night classes just because Yenna does prefer her a bit more over Eli. So, yeah, like she likes Eli, but Heather a bit more. So Heather comes just takes the night classes and everything else. But I mean, so Gun would see it basically everyone here, and Gun and Chris will actually do question who Daniel is and why you try to hit Gun. Daniel was smirking, saying, "Oh, Daniel trained him," and Daniel and him happen to have the same name too. Immediately they're shocked, and Gun immediately got ready for a fight, saying it's gonna be a hard fight then. Daniel nodded. He says, "I'm also stronger too." Crystal's eyes widen, but in the middle of a moment of shock, Gun's hit right in the face, and then flying into a full 360. We land forward, rushing Daniel again. Daniel and Gun proceed to go in basically just a blow-for-blow fight. In this blow-for-blow fight, eventually halfway through, Daniel actually jumped away as Eli would jump in, alongside basically all the students, like Eli, Max and Derek, Warren, Vasco, Zach, Vin, Jay. They all jump in me and fighting against Gunn. Gunn's like overwhelmed by this amount of power. Like he's amazed. And to put Eli in terms of power, if you know that Eli, that was like not Eli. I mean, if you know that Daniel, that's basically just like full of self regret and anger. The one that fought in like the whole Onsen arc. Eli's about as strong as that version of Daniel. He's as strong as an angry Daniel. And then, see, that's Eli not even like going like the whole neon-eyed form or anything. That's just basic Eli. If Eli were to go to the neon eye form, he may be like the Ultra Instinct. Not Ultra Instinct, probably be a bit stronger, but not Ultra Instinct level yet. So Eli is just broken. This way you say it. But Eli does fight against so Eli fights against Gunn as well, and Gunn's more interested in Eli's power, but Gunn does beat them all. And that's why Daniel didn't fight. He says he noticed he couldn't be bothered to fight anymore. He wanted to see how they'd fare. They're his students after all. He says, well, Eli is Daniel's student, not mine. Now Eli isn't aware that Daniel has two bodies, but he's aware that Daniel and him are under original body Daniel, so to say. So all he knows is that he's a coworker of Daniel. Of second body Daniel, that is. But yeah. But Gunn doesn't know if they all fought in tandem, and if they were good at working as a unit, like Max and Derek were, and if they were... Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, Ollie goes to the school too. Ollie just wasn't there today. But if they all work together in unison, like Max and Derek, like if they could work in unison like Hostal does, Gunn thinks he would have lost indefinitely. So yeah, and Daniel doesn't know this. But then we go into the next arc where Yui is a streamer. Yui, that one girl, but yeah. Duke is also a streamer. So when Duke is streaming, well, that goes the exact same. But then actually, well, he gets help from Vin, because Vin is friends with Daniel. Well, kind of. Daniel forced Duke to actually help out, not Duke. He forced Vin to help out Duke, not Duke help out Vin, but yeah. So you've been streaming, so did Duke. Daniel had Vin help Duke with like certain things, and yeah. Those two combined did make an incredible rap trio though. Duo, Vin and Duke. But yeah. So Daniel basically end up yeah, so this arc honestly isn't much different, honestly. Just when Zoe's about to get stabbed by that one guy, we would just see when Zoe's about to get stabbed by that one guy. Originally, just happened to be just nearby, just happened to be in the store. Like he owns that store. He's just in there sleeping as a manager. Daniel basically just like originally just in front of the guy, kicking him right in the jaw, breaking it and knocking him out, landing, and then picking up the guy's dad and putting him in like the best of the best hospitals he can. So yeah. Then going to Zach getting scammed. Zach hires a kid to buy him shoes. If he gives the guy money, the guy gets scammed. And yeah, Daniel and everyone, the whole squad rolls out. But this time, with them is just the whole Hostal group. Now immediately, Gion High would actually ask what this group's for. Are they so strong? Billy set up saying, "You know the crew Hostal." They says, "No, well, I've heard rumors of them. Why?" Pulls up his hair, so he shows the H. Notice that they mess with someone who's a friend of the head of Hostal. Made the guy almost pissed himself. And Eli told him to pick the guy by his head, climbing him into the ground. The other two guys would rush at Eli, did not like hearing him or seeing the tattoo. But immediately, Max and Derek would jump and beat the guy down pretty easily. Also up to the last guy, only as he just kicked right in the face. Yeah. So yeah, that kind of solved the whole shoe issue pretty easily. I'm pretty sure I just grabbed a fly and threw it. Like a fly flying around my face, I just closed my hand and just threw it around. And I heard something get hit. Like I heard a small pat. I'm pretty sure I threw a fly at my wall. I'm impressed with myself. I'm impressed with myself. Counselor arc honestly isn't much different. And then Daniel runs into Logan, but Logan just kind of saw Daniel is like some short shrimp because it's original body Daniel going to see his mother. Well, Logan saw Daniel's like some short kid, tried to bully him, only try to like just hit him, but he gets kicked right in the face and then just gets repeatedly beat down over and over again for almost an hour on end. And then Daniel's done beating him with original body Daniel and second body Daniel. He's covered in blood and bruises and almost unconscious. But Daniel let go as he walks to go visit his mother. Then fast forward when he's about to leave, and Logan tries to fight him again, only to get dodged and then kicked right in the nuts and passes out through pain. Yeah. So Logan's beaten up by Daniel. And we move on past this. It's probably just Daniel getting the dog, which honestly is much different. We also go on to another arc that I forgot to actually note down, which is the whole, I guess where Dooley and some other guy tried to be famous. Well, Dooley was already pretty famous on Paprika TV. But they pissed off a thug. And that thug is targeting them now, then eventually Dooley and the guy are captured. But now Daniel, Zach, and Vasco would find the guy. But they basically just end up going and, we find the thug. Basically, we just honestly see, you see this actually, I walk up to the guy and deck him right in the face, breaking the bat and the guy's face and knocking him out. So, yeah. Pause one more time. See, Zach's done that random Facebook star pretty easily. And then going to dinner being a model, which honestly goes the exact same way. It's just when his mom left and came back there in his original second body, he bought the store. So, yeah. On-son money pays really well. So comparing to like a nightclub like XS Las Vegas, Daniel owns 10 clubs that are very popular because he knows what kids his age like, but also just what adults like because he's around them 24/7. So it's knowing what adults like and what kids his age like, or teenagers his age like, not kids. Basically, these clubs pop off. So XS Las Vegas makes like $100 million, $155 million a year, maybe on the lower scale, $90 million a year. Daniel is pulling in around that much money a year, or Ensemble as a whole is, but then there's 10 of that, so 105 million times 10. Daniel is like Daniel with the connections he has for just from owning Anzan and the whole crew in Hostal, but also a bit of big deal in that he makes around $1 billion a year. $1 billion. Yeah, so in won, he makes around 1.3 trillion won. So yeah, that's a lot of money coming in. And he considers that around Big Deal, around Hostel, around his friends and family. He's loaded, but he kind of lives like he makes, like he doesn't make any money whatsoever. But yeah. Then the whole escort arc doesn't happen. It kind of happened for Zach, and Zach treats it the same way he did for this from Canada. He wanted to buy Mira a gift, but from money he earned on his own, not from bullying anyone or anything. So yeah. So yeah. Pause. So now we move on to basically just Jiho getting out of money because of Jake. But honestly, in this one, Jake doesn't really scam Jiho. It's someone else who scams him. But these guys are owned by Big Deal, but they're going behind their back. Big Deal makes a ton of money. Just because Daniel flows money to them, but then teaches them ways to make money without them having to be bad guys. So they just own businesses outside of their own area. Like they own businesses within Gang Buck. Because Daniel doesn't care and pushes into Johan's territory with no effort. But Johan can't do anything about it because he fights Eli every time and loses horribly. He even loses to Jake horribly. So yeah. So a lot of the territory, Johan doesn't know about, doesn't really care, honestly, because he's only God Dog. He doesn't really care about too much about the territory, but it's mainly about respect. But Jiho does get scammed, Vasco would go help him and beat up everyone in that company, so Jake would arrive and ask him if Vasco did this. Vasco tells him these guys, if they're working under him, they're scamming people illegally. If you know about that, he says he didn't know that they did that, and he'll make sure to talk to them. But that's what it meant to have all of his friends' money returned. But Jake says he can't do that right now. He hasn't gotten his paycheck yet. But shockingly, Gunn and Daniel would walk up. Well, they wouldn't walk up. They just appear as they're clashing fists. It's second body Daniel and original body. Second body Daniel and Gunn. So fighting, the bulls rapidly swap blows. And eventually Gunn is sent flying back, and Daniel is sent flying back himself. As he lands kind of like right on both of his hands. His gun would end up landing on his feet, asking why Daniel's so weak compared to his master. Daniel says, my master is weaker than me. I'm telling you that right now. But Gunn and Daniel keep fighting, and eventually Jake would butt in, actually asking like why they're fighting. But Daniel tells Jake, don't worry about it, and by the way, his paycheck is over there, so he just points like near a building where there's a giant bag. With that, Jake would pick it up, then pay Vasco the money that Jiho needed. But eventually the fight's over. Gunn actually did leave a broken arm, but Daniel was still beaten up into the ground unconscious. So yeah, Daniel lost that day. The Gunn. But yeah, so Jiho got his money back. That's all that matters. But now, well, Vasco actually begins wanting to join Big Deal. Daniel says that Vasco can do that if he wants to. Just don't get too involved with the 4 major crews. Vasco actually goes to meet Jake, and they actually talk over sake or whatever they drink. Wait. All right. Next up, it's sports today. That arc honestly isn't much different. Just Duke doesn't get bullied by Vin. Instead, Vin is just hanging out with Duke. Vin and Duke mutually helping each other. Well, they're both actually pretty famous on Paprika TV and YouTube. So yeah. So Vin does make enough money and money to support his grandmother, and it's going pretty well for him. Then next up is the PTJ. But Daniel, well, he got in there pretty easily because of DG. But what actually happened is him coaching Duke through it. Because Daniel was at the model there, he actually said, he looked in the corner, not in the corner, but in the booth closely, saying DG. And DG, we know he knows about 2 bodies, so he knows about Daniel having 2 of them. So we walked out and then said, oh, Daniel, you're here. It was mentioning how Daniel knows DG, but DG kneels down saying, oh, that's my cousin. Everyone's jaw drops. I didn't know DG had any, they didn't even know if he had a mother. But he says that Daniel's his cousin. And then he says, he's up saying, no, I don't know his real cousin, but we known each other a long time. So, yeah. Wait, pause. So Dan basically says that he's known PTJ for a long time. Not PTJ. He's known DG for a long time. And they're basically family, but more like cousins. So, yeah. Now, Duke does get in through connections with DG and Daniel. He does actually still get put Class C. But eventually, we just go on to Duke for getting his key. Second body Daniel would arrive, giving Duke his... Not second, original body Daniel would arrive, giving Duke his key. Like his own, like Daniel gives Duke his key. Daniel gives Duke Daniel's key. So, kind of what it is. So, yeah. So with this, we can just go to basically probably just Ari's bodyguard trying to bully Duke. Well, they try to bully Daniel. They don't basically just use a systema on him and beats the living hell out of the bodyguard. By the time that Daniel's done with him, bodyguard is just laid out on the ground, covered in blood, bruises, and barely able to move a muscle. There's one key difference between both bodies. Daniel doesn't notice the difference too much, but he can feel like there's one. You can't lay a finger on it yet. The second body, Daniel has a lot more strength, muscle, durability, basically just every stat except for intelligence, even though there's like equal intelligence. One thing that one body has that one other body doesn't is superior speed. So yeah. So next day, I was walking through PTJ. And she would see second body Daniel there with Vasco and basically his whole posse. Like basically the whole Hostal crew, the whole Ansan crew, plus Duke by his side. Bodyguards look at Duke, then look up at the posse, and be more intimidated by second body Daniel than anyone else he's ever felt. This whole posse is a monster. Like, Tae-Soo is with them, and Tae-Soo's titanic in size. So he's terrifying too. Utter being like yelling at Daniel saying like, what kind of brat has a whole crew, has a whole posse of gangsters behind him? Says, posse? I'm the leader. Immediately everyone's jaw drops. Before he actually kick the bodyguard in the face, saying, and Duke told me what you tried to do to him. You also tried to keep. Well, my friend settled it, but I didn't settle it for you, so I'm gonna settle it fully. Right, with that, you actually picked up basically the bodyguard by the collar, then threw him basically into a wall full force. Daniel jumped full speed ahead, nailing the guy right in the face as hard as he can, knocking him out. So as he knocked out the guy, yeah. So as he knocked out, the bodyguard again, Otto would demand why Daniel's doing this. Then DG would walk up behind her saying, "Daniel, it's been a long time, right?" This is DG. It hasn't been that long. It's been a few weeks at the most. DG's honestly happy to see his brother again and hang out and not just pay his rent. So yeah. All right. So yeah. But initially, Aru was almost forced to do the nude shoot, but Daniel had walked in alongside all of Hostal, all of Ansan, but actually with him would be most of Big Deal as well. Laughing, saying, "So Aru, the almighty famous model Aru, has met someone so awful, treated someone so awful. Well, she dated a gangster, dumped someone, and so wonderful to be someone this awful. Disappointing." Immediately, Jake walked up before punching Art's boyfriend right in the face and shattering his face completely. So Daniel basically just ended up having Jake just beat up the bodyguard and the whole gangster crew that walked out. They ended up laughing and saying someone more important is on their way. That Chairman Choi would arrive alongside Gun and Goo. And, yeah. So with having Gun and Goo walk in alongside everyone else, let's go see Goo and actually begin talking to him. Goo would recognize Vasco, but notice how strong he's gotten. Look at Daniel and question why he's so familiar. But Chairman Choi's aware of Daniel having two bodies, so is DG. Chairman Choi will probably tell who this is. Ends up staring him down, and Chairman Choi then just mumbles, only loud enough for Daniel to hear, saying, "So this is your way of trying to beat me, huh, Daniel?" Daniel nodded, saying, "Shut up." I just nodded, saying, "Yes," and "Shut up, I have no interest in speaking to you." Roy dashed forward at full speed ahead at the thugs, with Eli, Jake, Gun, and Goo beside him. These four combined drop all the thugs around them with really no effort. But honestly, what no one notices, it's honestly just a fight between Jake and Eli, and Daniel, Gun, and Goo. So yeah. When Daniel does get a stalker, but DG noticed it a mile away and just told Daniel, and then he walked in his apartment, searched the whole thing, and then beat up the stalker. So yeah. So then with this, we move on to probably just Logan transferring to Jay High. But when he arrives, he fights basically everyone except for Jay. But Jay is not audibly. What was it? Oh, fuck it. What was it? Like, visibly more muscular. It's like he visibly has a lot more muscle mass on him. And then everyone until he works out. But then everyone else, he'd fight Jace, he lost. He'd fight Vasco, he lost. He'd fight Vin, he loses. Even if he fights Mary Kim, and he loses. That's everyone important except for Daniel, and he lost horribly. But then he uses Daniel to some pretty boy who doesn't seem too strong, then tries to run up on him, only for everyone to actually pull him away, just hold with the finger in the mouth saying, No. Well, I let earlier saying everyone important. He didn't fight anyone hostile, because no one knows that Eli can fight. He seems like a pretty go-lucky, frail, happy guy. Logan just shrug off Eli's grip. Only realizes it gets stronger. Links up seeing Warren, Ollie, Max, and Derek. You fast forward to the roof where Logan is laying there with his body broken and he's unconscious. So yeah. So Logan got beaten pretty badly by Hostal. So with this, we move on past this arc, probably on to I don't know. We can probably just move to we can probably just move on to the country field trip, which honestly goes the exact same. Then Daniel would meet Johan, Johan would see Daniel, but it's a second by Daniel, not original by Daniel. Daniel knows very well who this is, and even says he knows who he is. But they stop. Daniel is holding Inu, but then actually points out that someone is trying to steal Eden not too far away. So Yon immediately runs full speed ahead, and his lady's walking away with holding Inu. Well, Yon just drop kicks her right in the ribs, breaking them all, and picking up his dog and walking back to Daniel. But Yon will actually ask who Daniel is. Yon says, "Oh, you know Daniel Park, the one that beat you up not too long ago. I'm his student, and I beat him. So I took over everything that he owned, which included everything in Gangbuk, everything in Onsan, and not all the big. He doesn't mention Big Deal. He says he took over Onsan and took over Hostal. Those are his crews now." Which actually shocked Johan. But Johan wanted to fight Daniel to see how strong he is, and actually wanted Daniel to compare him to his master. But then when Johan went for a punch, Daniel just appeared behind him and just drop kicked him right back to the head, then kicked him right in the side, just yelling Johan all over. But eventually Daniel would decide to actually just use a new technique, as he actually would copy Jiu-Jitsu, or use a copy technique from Jiu-Jitsu that he learned from Logan. He basically would end up using an Americana hold until Johan can't break out of this. His grip is too strong. No one would try, but Daniel's right. Daniel's grip is simply just too powerful to break out of. Daniel let him go, then Johan kept trying to fight. But then Daniel just got in a Wing Chun-like stance, and honestly ended up nailing him right in the jaw. And it was just very, very swift motion. That wasn't even Wing Chun, which is a very swift hit. And that knocked out Johan. He woke up not long after, and asked Daniel to compare him to other Daniel Park. He says, "You'd still lose horribly. He's a lot stronger than you know. He has the same ability as you and me, which is copying things. Only difference is, me and him copy them perfectly. You only copy what someone does on the surface level. You don't copy on the deepest level, like we do. We copy to master it. You copy because you can. Or we copy because we can and we master it. You just copy it because you know you can. You don't master it because you don't know how." That just proves how inferior you are to Daniel. This is Daniel saying Daniel, this is Daniel talking about himself, like he's talking about another person with the same name as him. So yeah. Then Vasco met Brekdak, or Sam at Brekdak, and teaches Daniel some techniques he uses. Then we go on to basically Jiho getting scammed out of his bank account by his old friend as the bank account was sold to God Dogs. But Daniel already knew who'd help with this, as his younger brother recently enrolled in J-High. But also he's smarter than his younger brothers. It doesn't matter. But his younger brother is better with this new era of computers. It takes Daniel a bit longer on the older computer that he mainly uses. So Daniel would approach Koji with all of his friends and ask Koji to help him. Koji agreed immediately, not even wanting a paycheck, because Daniel would already, not Daniel would pay, DG would pay, and he's not trying to start anything with Daniel or DG. So yeah. Helps them, and when they find out, Daniel immediately said he knows where this place is. He owns it. He actually said he'll have it handled in a minute. And he pressed the button on his phone, and Warren, Eli, all being fighted as the Hostal arrived. Now this actually happens to be somewhere that Hostal owned, but Daniel owns Hostal, so he owns it indirectly. But they go into the building, and Eli would be there up front, and Jin will question why the leader of Hostal's here. Eli says that he owns this building. And immediately they realize where they fucked up. They think it's just Eli, so they can win. Until they realize it's all a Hostal, and the leader of Hostal is it's not uncommon for people, it's not common, or it's not rare knowledge that Daniel owns Hostal or Onsan. It's pretty well known if you know about the Formager crews. So Daniel kind of understood everything. So if you know about the Formager crews and the leaders, you know that Daniel's probably is the leader of Onsan and Hostal. And that Hostal owns their area, but also Onsan. So yeah. So all of Onsan, all of Hostal walked in. Then Daniel walked in with them alongside the J-High 5 now, because we actually have Logan joining them. Logan honestly want to get stronger, but even someone as prideful as Vin is knows he's part of the J-High 5. But yeah. So when it came to Jin trying to attack someone, Lee Vasquez just stepped up and kicked Jin right in the face. And Jin that he can't beat him with this low level skill. And even Jay can beat him this easily. But Daniel had to basically immediately just watch Vasco demolish Jin, while basically all of Hostal and all of Onsan basically just wanted to brutalize God Dogs like nothing was happening, or nothing would happen after. But yeah, once they stop the scam, eventually they go find Jiho's old friend, which is actually the original why Daniel doing it with Jiho. Daniel honestly just got bored, went to sleep, and woke up in the second body. Or woke up in the original body saying, "Oh, he'll do it in this one." And told Jiho that it's gonna be him who's coming because he can find information better. So with this, we can probably just go on to fucking okay. So Jill would push them both out a window. It's just one of Daniel who's left in the hospital. His mother would arrive. So with Jay, because Jay's actually really good friends with both Daniels. So basically, the whole Anton crew would arrive. The whole Hostal crew, his mother, Jay, and DG would arrive. When they arrived, the extra question would happen. But second body Daniel was there, just saying, "Oh, someone he thought who was his friend pushed him out a window at a window because his friend had an inferiority complex to him." Daniel kind of decides, saying he's going to go resolve it in his own way. But everyone left with Daniel. Well, besides Jay, she told Jay to stay, and then told DG to stay as well. So yeah. So with this, we can probably just go on to fucking the well, I guess just a whole just discovering runaway fams going on. Like he knew they were a thing because like Jackie and Max and Derek, but he didn't know that it was this bad. Max and Derek still own a tteokbokki store, so yeah, they still own it, but yeah. All right, so yeah, Daniel finds out about how horrible runaway fams are, and tries to infiltrate one. One thing about Daniel is someone named Daniel owns Hostal and Ensemble. They don't know what he looks like. All he knows is that his name is Daniel. Well, only if you've met him, you know what he looks like and you know how strong he is. But the thing is, no one dares spread knowledge about who he is because they know it ruin a few things for him. So yeah, but eventually he's kind of quit their whole runaway fam thing because he kind of got bored of it. But Daniel eventually everybody Daniel will fight Logan one more time. Logan did get a bit stronger, but loses pretty horribly still. But eventually he does wake up in a second body, and he is actually not just like original body. He wakes up in his original body, and he had actually he's in the VIP room. Honestly, he paid for it, but Jay and DG funded everything in it. So yeah, God Dog picks a fight with Jay High now. Honestly, just Johannes people think he's easy because Anson slash Hostal owns a ton of his territory or moves in on it. So does a big deal as he recently learned. But yeah, so first fight would actually be Vin Jin versus Ivan Park. But Daniel would not tolerate weakness in his group. Like Eli, like all of Hostal had to remove their own weaknesses, same as Anson. They had to remove their own weaknesses as well. So yeah, but like including the J High 5, Logan's still working on it, but he got a lot stronger either way. But yep. So Vin can remove all of his weaknesses, which included he removed all his weaknesses, which included wrestling. When giving him versus Ivan, Vin learned wrestling to counter his weakness of wrestling, and he won that fight pretty easily. It also simply was just dodging Ivan's first attack and then punching him right through a wall and knocked him out. All right, so Vin beat Ivan pretty easily because basically it was supposed to be like judo versus wrestling, but Vin turned it into wrestler versus wrestler, but wrestler just had a chance, so Vin punched him through a wall. That's all that happened. It was Logan versus Hope Park, and Logan beat him pretty easily, no matter how big the guy was and how strong he was. But then it was basically God Dog's Vasco's job to fight him. But Vasco at this point is about stronger than Johan is. Johan didn't get much stronger actually. almost like he tried to copy, he already knew, but Daniel knew this, so he only used them on a basic level, so Johan couldn't copy anything that was useful. Otherwise, he copied a few techniques from random gangsters that he found, and they weren't useful whatsoever. So when it came to Vasco versus all the god dogs, he beat them into the dirt by himself, even Johan. All that happens is that he was covered in a few bruises. That was it. So yeah. Now Zach will fight another boxer with him, Scott Kwan. But then Scott Kwan stepped in the ring and tried to block a punch. He's punched right out of the ring with how much force Zach had in his punches. And Zach says that he fights as every kind of boxer. So no matter what Scott tries to do, Zach has a counter to it. But yeah. Then it was Eli who was just hanging out with his daughter Yenna. And then he actually got off work. He learned how to style hair a bit better because of Sally and Heather and Ollie even. Because Ollie has his hair kind of like just dreaded. So yeah. But when he came to the guys in the bathroom with Crystal and Yenna, well, basically, Max and Derek walked in. Actually, Crystal telling her to wait outside with Yenna. They'll handle this themselves. But as soon as Derek turned around, all the guys were thrown around with their heads through stalls, their heads in toilets, and they're kind of thrown around pretty easily. Derek walked out saying, "Never mind." Not Derek. Max walked out saying, "No worries. Those are pretty weak either way." Now, you guys want to know how strong Max and Derek were? When Johan first started God Dogs, Max and Derek had beaten Warren. They compared to Johan, and individually they're still pretty powerful. Like they weren't as strong as Johan or Warren are, but they're still really really powerful. They can throw hands with Jason and Brad from Big Deal. They're still like that. They're just like 10 times more powerful than that because they're training with Jackie. So yeah. But eventually, everyone had arrived at Vasco's job, and only to just see Vasco sitting on like some guy's car with all the god dogs around him, unconscious, even Johan. But Zach arrives saying, "Oh, Johan, you're here." Johan stood up saying, I'm fully recovered. Fight me again." As he went at Vasco. Then sees Daniel and everyone else around him as Zach says, "Sorry, but you'll be the one fighting me." Immediately, Zach and Johan begin fighting, only for Zach to dominate him completely, and with no effort, really. When the fight's over, Johan's defeated, and it's at full power, but he's defeated. But Gunn will end up seeing Zach, actually asks Zach to become the new God Dog head. Suddenly, Gunn will have to jump away, and he sees Zach's fist pointed right at his face. It was like if he didn't have such good reflexes, he probably would have been knocked to the ground pretty easily. But Daniel then says that Gunn should just leave. They have a new idea. Or he has an idea. Immediately the next day, all of God Dog's territory was destroyed, and Zach is now the king of God Dogs of Gang Buck. Basically, he's the king of that area. Zach is now another head of Gang Buck, and now it's official. The Burn Knuckles have joined Big Deal, and they on territory is shared among Big Deal and God Dogs, and the God Dog territory is shared among everyone else too. All that's left is the Workers. The Workers realize that every other territory is against him now. So even they're taking in like local crews and just absorbing other people who kind of defected. Like he's pulling in any fighter he can, like just major ones. So yeah. Pause. So basically all of Gang Buck is owned by every crew except for the Workers. I forgot where I was honestly, so we're going to leave it at that, and then we can move on all the way on to we can just move on to probably just the other Runaway Crew arc. But honestly, it's just Runaway fans are on a rise. That's kind of what it is. But yeah. But so Daniel there's a girl that's kind of selling her stockings and other gross essentials. Daniel actually learned a thing or two about computers, new computers from Koji, and then found out pretty fast. Finding out it was Jasmine, and did it in the middle of the class. Again, everyone walk in, they're like, "Oh, who's doing it?" It says, "Oh, give me a minute." When I found a picture and the address, like, this is the address, find out who lives there. They found the last name, they found the guy had a kid, and they look at the classmate right across the classroom, and she tries to sneak out. When they find it's Jasmine, they immediately just began yelling at her and shit, and I don't blame them. I've done the same thing too. No, I would have done far worse, but yeah. But eventually, we just go on to probably just Daniel sort of sneaking into a runaway fam. They start talking Hostal. They end up asking, do they know about the secret leader of the Hostal gang? Say, oh yeah, well, no, the owner. He's not a secret leader, actually. And that's when Daniel says, oh, really, you know him, huh? Daniel immediately showed a picture of Eli Jang, and that's why he has a picture of him. And he says, who do you think I am? And what's my name? And then he says, Daniel, oh, shit. So they can get up and run away. Then we'll jump up. And then we go on to Justin and Chuck. These two are trying to become the king of all runaway fams and sneak up and drop they're trying to sneak up and destroy they're trying to sneak up and destroy fucking Hostal. When Justin and Chuck arrive, they don't basically just walk over, and everyone's also like Ollie's already there and just says he already beat them, but they do think they can beat him again. So let's see how they handle against the true leader. As they both just get Justin and Chuck both just get quick punches to the face, just each one of them just get decked one more time each time. Yeah, Justin, they know just one punch, and then Chuck one punch, just a ton of punches all to the face over and over again. All right. So Daniel beat up that whole runaway fam. Then they arrive Justin and Chuck get beat up by Daniel each. Then first by Ollie, then by Daniel. Then Justin and Chuck are allowed to join Hostal, and they're taught by Max and Derek and Jackie. Well, they mainly join Ansan. They don't join Hostal, but Hostal and Ansan are kind of in a truce, and they're kind of just allies. So yeah, next important thing would probably be just Jin Jang trying to orchestrate events. But first would be Daniel versus Zach, and that fight wouldn't happen. Zach's terrified of Daniel. It'd be Logan versus Jay, and that fight went on. Jay would dominate him. Then Vasco versus Vin, and Vin's terrified of Vasco. So yeah, that's really what would happen. Jay would dog Logan. Zach's terrified of Daniel, and Vin's terrified of Vasco. That's how it goes. Again, hierarchy of strength for the J High 6 counting Daniel, or 7 counting for the J High I guess counting Daniel and Eli and Ollie and Warren and counting all of them in order of fear, it'd basically be Daniel is scariest. Below him, Eli. Below him, Ollie. Below him, Vasco. That's the order of fear. Honestly, Ollie and Eli are batshit crazy, so they're more terrifying. Max and Derek are the lowest on the list. They're right. The only one below them is Vin. That's it. Only one below them is Vin. That's it. But yeah, so Jin thought he could orchestrate these events to fight. Again, I'm forgetting that Daniel's the whole leader and that they wouldn't fight him, or they wouldn't fight each other because they're terrified of him. Yeah, so basically Daniel would just arrive, and when he arrives, when they all arrive, they kind of are all in peak shape. But Daniel would arrive as Jerry is walking next to him, and that's when Jerry's like, "Sorry, but you couldn't pay me enough money to fight him." Jin says, "What? Why not?" Jin basically allied dozens of runaway fams to fight Hostal, or anyone associated with them, to fight J High and Hostal. This is when Jerry says, "Well, honestly, I don't think I should tell you this, but there's no rule saying I shouldn't. Big bro Daniel owns Big Deal." Immediately, Jin has his jaw drop, saying, "Oh shit, all that's left is the workers, isn't it?" Daniel nods, saying, "Yeah. What do you think you're gonna do about it?" Before Jin can say anything, Jerry would appear in front of him, nailing him right in the chest, knocking out Jin immediately. Every single runaway fam there is destroyed. Pretty easily, actually. So, yeah. Eventually, OG Buddy, they don't become a streamer. Just actually just stream that he knows martial arts. And just saying that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what your build is. You can still be really good at martial arts. So yeah, he kind of just started streaming because he thought it'd be fun. But eventually he's pulled into second affiliate without them knowing who he is. Samuel forgot who this is. The fact that Daniel's body, it changed a bit in height, and that's about it. Samuel kind of forgot who this is because this height and muscle mass was a bit different. All he thought that there was a resemblance, but then by the time it was too late, he realized that was the real Daniel. He just bulked up a bit. He just let himself be captured. Because one day while he's in the room, there's like what and Hilarious are captured, and like when Hilarious are still with them. When they're captured, he immediately got pissed off as he does think of them as like his daughters. He actually looking at the camera saying, "Tell Samuel that I'm going to break out of here," and someone tells Samuel, "I can break out of here like what and Hilarious, or he can let me out peacefully, and there won't be war between Workers, Hostal, Big Deal, and Ansan." Immediately, Samuel's told that and says, "Wait, that's him, isn't it?" Before you can say anything else, they all hear glass shattering. They look seeing Daniel walking out of his computer room, and well, he actually kind of used before he did that, he broke the camera in his room, and then beat up every single guard and hacked his computer. Then notified all of all of the Hostal and everyone. As they're walking out, well, suddenly Benjamin tries to stop Daniel, only just get 1-inch punch right in the spine and sent flying far into a wall. He would blah off saying who 1-inch punched him like that hard, only seeing Warren. Arnold smirking, saying, "Come on, old man, fight me. You're no match for my boss." That Warren and Manager Kim fight, and they're about equal in their skill of Jeet Kune Do, actually, which is shocking. Manager Kim with experience, though, kind of overcame Warren, but still, eventually, he did lose just through his endurance wearing him down. So, yeah. So, with this, we can move on to probably just when they're all leaving. They encounter Tom Lee and Samuel at the door. Samuel thinks he can beat Daniel now. He rushed at Daniel full speed, only if his punch caught, and then him twisted in the midair, then kicked right in the solar plexus. Then flying into the wall and would slip over. Daniel then would look next to him, seeing Eli with his eyes being neon green, and him fighting Tom Lee. Tom would jump back as his chest is completely slashed up by Eli, but then Ollie joined in, and these two keep fighting against Tom Lee. But eventually, Tom Lee has to jump far away, because if he didn't jump far. So Tom Lee eventually had beaten Ollie and Eli, but was thoroughly impressed with them. But suddenly he would see Eli get up, and Eli would get in a certain stance that would resemble Tae-Soo. But instead of just doing like that, grabbing one arm or the other, he kind of gets in the pose like he's grabbing his arms, but like he gets the pose he would if he would have it on his arm. But if you guys know I'm Tae-Soo's stance, imagine that, but he's not grabbing any of his limbs, he's kind of in that stance ultimately. Eli then says, "This is the Iron Fist style mixed in with the Beast style." So Eli calls the style Iron Beast. Then Eli began using it, and Tom Lee's being completely overwhelmed and barraged by the style with how hard he hits. Suddenly, Eli actually nailed Tom Lee right in the chin, and then Tom Lee just through the floor. Eli get up holding his face. This basically batshit crazy. He dashes at Eli full speed. Suddenly he's kicked right in the face by Daniel. Instant flying back, and he looks up as Tom Lee sent flying back. He would see Daniel blocking something as well. Then sees Goo fighting Daniel. Goo had arrived as him and Daniel begin swapping blows. And Daniel's gotten a lot stronger. He copied the Iron Beast style from just looking at Eli fighting against Tom Lee. But now Daniel using the Iron Beast style would fight against Goo, and now Daniel's a lot stronger. Probably about as strong as Goo is. So, yeah. So Daniel would eventually still be knocked out because Goo picked up a sword, got a bit stronger. But Daniel would shoot an Ultra Instinct for the first time, as he would suddenly just appear on his feet. Well, by the way, this is like small body Daniel, so he's a lot faster now. But yeah. Well, Daniel basically just appeared right above Goo, and Goo gets punched right in the face, full force. As Daniel would basically mix in the Iron Beast with Muay Thai, as these styles actually complement each other. But eventually Goo's defeated by Daniel, but Daniel just passes out just through sheer injuries. Okay, with Daniel being knocked out, just through his body being too tired and beaten up, still, he beat Goo. But Daniel makes up considers it a draw because he was already considers it a draw because just he's kind of just respectable, not respectable, a little too modest still. But eventually, the third affiliate, where Chairman Hong actually wants to hire Daniel, and Daniel agreed. But let's say he already owns all of Gangbuck and all of the. Pause this real quick. Let's describe it. So Daniel owns the North. Daniel himself owns the North. The Workers own the South. That's it. That's all they own. He owns the East as well, and he owns the West. Only place he's missing is the South. There's all my videos, my bad. Right here. So Daniel owns everywhere but the South. And everyone's aware of that. Like, But yeah, so Daniel Chill's trying to get a third affiliate, just actually conquer that as well. But it's the second body Daniel doing this. But Chairman Hong also isn't aware. He's not aware of Daniel owning the like every area. So he go home and talk to Jay, and Jay tells Chairman Hong and Dan that they don't need his money. He owns this many areas. He owns basically every single business that involves clubs or anywhere that's popular for people that are around that between the ages of 15 and 20. Daniel owns those areas or owns those businesses. Daniel is probably making as much money as Chairman Hong is. Probably maybe a bit less, but still a lot of money for someone his age. So yeah, but as in the club, Jake is working there just to get info on Sinu. Then Daniel actually told Jake he's gonna be sneaking in here. But Daniel had to basically use his bond, I guess, quote unquote bond, with Tom Lee to actually get him to hire Jake for a second. But Johan didn't know this, so yeah. But yeah. Alright, so when he gets in, well, he does accidentally eat edibles. He does actually have a black badge. He got it from DG. But yep. So Daniel does the edibles. He actually did, but he wakes up in like the whole I guess Club VV, not Club Hotel VV. But he stands up and he asks if he's ready for the hunt or like the treasure hunt. The guys all being acting weird, only for him to both just kick them all, go through them in the face, saying, "Sorry, but he's not really a billionaire's son. He is a billionaire himself. He's a self-made one, and he views the party around with a bunch of spoiled brats." Immediately, her bodyguard King Gong would arrive, actually ask him what he's doing. This man he says, "Hey, do you know about like forming your crews?" King Gong said, "Yeah." He says, "And do you know about how workers is the only one left?" And King Gong say, "Yeah, what about it?" And he says, "Yeah, I made it that way. I'm the one that made it this way." King Gong immediately drops the bed as he sees Daniel's body, knowing this is the body of a warrior. He can feel the presence of one too. And immediately he begins shaking a bit, telling Vivi that she should run and get Xiao Lung. He doesn't know if he can win this fight. He does that, but suddenly he'd appear in front of Vivi, telling her that he's going to be taking her. Suddenly Daniel's hands almost cut off until he looks up, in the next room seeing Xiao Lung. Lung's eyes see fury, until he realizes that he didn't cut off Daniel's hand at all. Because Daniel just caught the blade, and pulled away from Xiao Lung, then broke the blade in half, or kind of broke the weapon in half. He holds it out like a sword, telling Xiao Lung this is all he will need to beat him. He gets in Gu's signature stance like Gu's using Kendo, then means fighting Gu. Gu means fighting Xiao Lung like he's Gu. But Xiao Lung's being beaten up mercilessly, like he can't do a single thing. By the time that Daniel's done, Xiao Lung's both of his arms, both of his legs, and a few of his teeth are all knocked. Both his arms and legs are broken. A few of his teeth are knocked out, and he can't see out of one eye. That's how badly Daniel did him with a sword in a few seconds. Then everyone was friends, like all the 150 kids or something they all grew up now, but they're now basically just mind controlled. The one guy raised by gorillas, King Gong, that one lady, Johan, Jake isn't just pretending to blend in with them, but basically all the guards are there. And it was working for telling Johan that Jake is working for him. That's why he's here. Then Jake went there kicking Johan right in the face full force and slamming Johan's head through a wall, knocking him unconscious. That Daniel and Jake begin basically dropping everyone in sight. By the time they're done, well, Daniel and Jake both aren't even scratched. Almost said scraped. So yeah, this kind of just ends this whole arc. Daniel just like Vivi, as she has to admit to Johan that she did the whole thing to Peng Song. Before Johan could do a single thing to her, Daniel basically hit him in the face, knocking him out. So yeah. Pause. So yeah. So Daniel didn't end up taking this arc. He would have. Somebody should have because he ate edibles, but his body's a bit more controlled than that with how much he trains. So yeah, like the way he trains, like he'll do the Bruce Lee push-ups, but his feet will be off the ground when he does them. That's how extreme his push-ups are. But yeah, so yeah, we can just move on past this to the probably I guess just the workers trying to like just have the crew just meet up. But yeah, not everyone's aware that Daniel is leading Big Deal in secret, so everyone thinks that Big Deal is just their own independent crew. It's like Daniel being open about owning Big Deal. Like not even Eugene knows that Daniel owns Big Deal. When they arrive, well, Daniel would arrive with workers. I mean, with God Dog. Well, Zach kind of owns all of God Dog's territory, so just Zach arrives, but Johan's with him. Johan has his face covered in bandages because of what Jake did to him. But yeah, all of Hostal, all of Ansan and Hostal are kind of the same crew at this point. Then we have Zach and Johan, plus Big Deal arriving. Big Deal kind of fused with Burn Knuckles, so Vasco's with them as well. Vasco actually worked way up to number 2, so yeah. So yeah, but workers actually offer to hire all of them. They can get a lot of money. They end up laughing. Well, not Daniel, but it's the second body Daniel, not original body Daniel. Who ended up laughing was basically Ollie and Warren and Taesu. Now, you should ask him why they're laughing. That's when he says, well, if you guys didn't know, Big Deal, tell them the truth. Big Deal says, Daniel owns us too. Immediately Eugene's eyes widen, and that's when Daniel says, in other territories, I own clubs that are worth probably as much as the H&H group. So I don't need you to hire me. I already employ myself, and I employ them. They make more money than you do in a month. So yeah. But with this, suddenly the guy in Cap would go to kick Daniel, only for Daniel to appear behind him with him in a headlock, like sending guillotine choke. With that, we suddenly see Logan jump in the air and basically land on the guy's back, and the guy couldn't avoid this because Daniel's grip was so strong. But the guy not being able to get up because of Logan's weight, and Logan also holding him down with that weight intentionally. Well, we'd also actually see Mandiok rush at Logan. But suddenly, Zach would appear above him, sending his foot in the guy's face, and Mandiok gets his honey back a bit. Suddenly, Taesu would appear in front of them, from Mandiok saying, sorry, but you're going to have taken up the fight a bit earlier. You're too strong for everyone else. Knowing that Mandiok probably isn't too strong for everyone else, like Warren, Ollie, Eli, Johan, Zach, a lot of people here could drop Mandiok pretty easily, actually. Taesu honestly just one-shots Mandiok. Yeah. So that's the next. So with this, basically, all of Eugene's guards are taken down. Like even Samuel, who's head of the 4th affiliate, is still being beaten up. Like everyone's being dropped rapidly. All that's left is Eugene, and Eugene's like, "Come on, you don't need to do this." So he would smirk as Daniel almost punched the side of the face, side of the head, until Eugene realized that Daniel blocked it, and from both sides. With that, we'd see Jin Young and Tom Lee trying to punch Daniel in the face. But they don't just tell Jin Young that someone here is far stronger than Jin Young and hates him with a burning passion. Or probably would. They jump right over them, landing by Jake, and puts out Jin Young saying, hey Jake, you know that guy was your dad's right-hand man, right? They dig him down saying, someone willingly let my dad wander around like that, huh? I'll kill him. All Big Deal being confronting Jin Young, and Jin Young didn't know if he could take them all with how strong Jake is. So Jake begins fighting Jin Young. So yeah. So Jin Young and Jake began fighting, and Big Deal versus Jin Young would happen, and Jake himself is overwhelming Jin Young, and then Jin Young just beaten almost to death by Big Deal themselves. While Vasco is actually fighting Tom Lee himself. But eventually there's a whole Barnacle crew who fights Tom Lee, and Tom Lee loses to them. Whole Anton arc didn't happen, so yeah. And the second affiliate is all that's left, so yeah. They're kind of weird now. They're trying to head back to Japan, but they're bringing Sino with them, and they don't refuse to let that happen because we found out which affiliate had Sino. So as soon as the second affiliate gets to the airport, well, they immediately are confronted by the whole Big Deal crew, who actually is a Barnacle, so they're a lot larger. The whole Big Deal crew. The whole Hostal crew, which actually fused with Anton now. The official Anton is now part of Hostal. So Hostal plus Anton, so the whole Hostal crew. And now, well, these heavy hitters like Daniel, Zach, all them. Immediately, no one would appear on Daniel. Only to have his punch blocked by Logan. Logan ends up saying, "Oh, come on, you're that weak." I expected. Losers are so weak. Logan and Noman began fighting on even terms. Sinu would appear in front of Daniel, but only to block his hit, saying, "Sinu, what'd they do to you?" Which Sinu can even say until the word has match sent right off, and he's punched right in the face. Full force is sent flying back. Sinu's wobbling around as he throws up, saying, "What hit me, a train?" Looks up, seeing Jake, saying, "Wait, Jake? He said he was dead." As he ends up looking at Nico, saying, "Wait, who are you?" And immediately he just realized what happened. His medication was actually just to wipe his memory a bit. Before they can even get him to get medicine, Hyoko would actually try to kill Sinu. Only for Sinu to just punch him right in the throat, full force, and just crush it completely. With that, Sinu beats down the rest of the second affiliate, saying there's no need to continue from here on out. Daniel ends up smirking, saying that now he's conquered the workers. Eugene is already held captive somewhere. Then we go to one of Daniel's businesses, and well, we go to the basement where Eugene is just held tied up to a chair covered in blood and bruises. If you're wondering about Mandeok and the other guy in the cap, they're both separated at different businesses. Mandeok is being watched by Zach, not by Zach, by Taesu, and the guy in the cap is actually being watched by Gun, not by Gun, by DG. So yeah. So yeah. By the way, Kenta fought Johan and lost in just one blow. So yeah. But now Daniel's final goal is to take down Chairman Choi. So he marched right up to the H&H group as they took all the outfits from the second affiliate, put on the mask and everything. He marched right in, kicking on the door. Chairman Choi is there in front of him with Gun and Goo by his side. Alongside basically everyone else who haven't been introduced to, who may be really strong. But Daniel has actually reached the pinnacle of strength, speed, and everything for this body's age. This body's completely maxed out on all stats and everything. Then was smirking under the mask, telling Chairman Choi that this fight is going to be a complete wash for him. They sit down Chairman Choi fight, and Chairman Choi lose horribly. Now with this, Gun will actually fight against Jake, and Jake almost kills Gun. Almost kills Gun. Gyu fights against Vasco, and Vasco beats him completely. Then everyone else on Chairman Choi's side is defeated. Chairman Choi's experts are revealed, and Daniel says he'll be taking over Chairman Choi's corporation and everything that Chairman Choi owned. With this, Daniel basically became the king of Korea and one of the richest men on Earth. Pretty easily, actually. So with this, well, we end this What If. If you guys enjoyed, like and subscribe for more. Adios.